Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of Hobbyside. This time, we're taking a look at some of the terrain that we have made for our Necromunda battle reports. So this is a terrain video dedicated to that. It's been a while since we did another terrain video, and there's been quite a bit of terrain that has been built by Iron Major, our resident terrain wizard. He's actually made quite a bit of terrain for us over the years for our channel, and so here's some examples of that today. So we're taking a look at some of these things that we've created. One of the things we'll probably look at is this giant structure here. We call this structure right here in the center of the table, we call it the Tower of Terror, so we'll take a look at that. We'll also look at some of the barricades that were created by Iron Major in order to use on the Tower of Terror as well. We'll also look at a couple of these Hisco barriers. As you can see here, we have a couple of them spread throughout the entirety of the battlefield, as well as some sight blockers that Iron Major has made. For example, this bag of sandbags right here. This pile of sandbags located right in that area. We'll also take a look at the river of slime that you guys have seen in many of our battle reports over the years. So we're going to take a look at that slime river as well. And finally, we're going to take a look at this fighting position here that Iron Major has also created as well. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on the wall. Well, actually not battle report, video battle report. And we'll start off with the Tower of Terror as our very first item here. Okay, so let's talk about the Tower of Terror real quick. So first of all, as you can see, it's based on a piece of MDF board. Is what it's located on, and Iron Major likes to use the MDF board for the bases of his terrain pieces because it doesn't warp. You can put sand on it, glue, paint, Mod Podge, and it won't cause it to curl up and to warp. And as you can see, pretty much the same kind of construction technique that was used for all the other buildings for the most part was pretty much used in exactly the same way on this structure as well. Now we've already talked about the satellite dish here that was created, so we'll go and move that out of the way real quick, so that way you guys have seen that one before. We talked about all the spare bits and bobs that have made that. So if you look at the top here, you actually get kind of an indication a little bit of what actually went into making this terrain piece. So as you can see, we have some pieces of foam board here, located here to make the barriers of it. And then on the outside of it, we have, of course, a sheet of styrofoam that is put on the outside of it, which of course is then also battle damaged to make it look like it's been scarred up by laser rifle fire and bullets and explosions and things. He then coats it in a small amount of wood glue on the outside of it, dusts it with sand, and then of course he dry brushes, paints it, and then washes it as well. And same thing with the top here, the walkway that is located on the top of here, this grating, we talked about this before, it's the same cross point stitching grating that is available in large sheets at every hobby store. It makes up both the walkways as well as the platform for this building as well. Now if you're wondering about the stripes, if you notice here there's hazard stripes here located at it, what that is, that's masking tape. I believe it's yellow masking tape that Iron Major has taken and then taken a black Sharpie and then carefully drew angles on the black stripping and actually colored in by hand on the Sharpie on that one to make the different hazard stripes on it as well. And the really cool thing about this frame piece, I'm going to show this real quick, it's modular. So let me pick it up real fast. So as you can see here, you can kind of take it off as well. And that way you can put the various layers on it. So if you're looking here in the bottom, you can see the various layers of foam board and cardboard and popsicle sticks and stuff that pretty much makes up this structure. So you can see here we have the little two pieces of balsa wood here that are there to act as the frame, and then beneath it, as you can see here, it kind of builds up on layers as well. So exactly the same kind of construction technique was used on every single layer. Now the support structure, if you'll notice here, the support structure is actually primarily styrofoam, so you make styrofoam pillars we did, and then you took sheets of sign board, plastic sign board, and then sandwiched individual pieces of styrofoam in between each block and then glue it all together. He used a hole punch to create these little rivets throughout the entirety of that structure to create a frame on which to build off of from there. And then of course he also made these bulkheads as well, these really awesome looking bulkheads. He made that out of cardboard. So if you see here, let me go and show the inside of it. So you can see here it's just a sheet of cardboard and he's put the grating on the outside of it on, and he's put a thin sheet of cardboard on the outside to make the frames. And that's originally how these structures were actually made. What ended up happening is that Iron Major actually made these bulkheads originally, and he didn't know what he was going to do with them originally, so because of that he was kind of like, well, what do I do? And so he decided to use it for the terrain piece that we see here. He decided to use it to build the Tower of Terror. And the really cool thing about these, let me zoom in real quick so you can see this. If you'll notice, there's little rivets on the corner of the plates of metal located on the outside of the bulkhead. And by doing that, what he did is he actually took a hole punch on some old plastic card and he punched it out with a miniature hole punch and then glued each individual rivet into place to make it look like it's a riveted structure. So you can see there, you can look through you can see through the bulkhead as well with the mesh that we have there as well. And then the inside of each of the structures, he has some more posters that he printed up from the internet he put them into place, and then of course glued them, and then weathered them to make it look like they're all messed up looking as well. And it's just an awesome piece of terrain. And like we said before, it's built in layers, so it's completely modular. And how we lined it up is, if you notice on this one side, this corner, there is a plastic straw that represents a pipe. So if you notice, that level has it. Let me go and take out this top level here. And the next level below it has that same straw, so that way you can build it on top of each other. It's like a 4-layered cake, is pretty much what it's kind of like. So that way it's completely modular and you can take it down. It's just the amount of detail involved. Look at this, look at the posters that he has there. And the grime and the washing that he did on this thing as well as the rubble that's located on the outside of it, and the battle damage. It's just absolutely beautiful work that Iron Major did in order to create this. And of course, each of the levels, of course, is about the same height as the gantry walkway, so that way you can put the walkways directly onto the Tower of Terror and you can stack up and make it look really, really cool. So yeah, just an awesome piece of terrain. I'm going to put it back together real quick. So he was building this. It took him quite a while to actually build this piece of terrain. Pretty much a solid month's worth of work to see him putting it all together again. So you can see the straws, how it lines up with the base all the way to the top. So just a crazy amount of work and detail went into creating this structure overall. And you can see it all just locks into place, so that way it's nice and sturdy. And then finally we have our radar dish that sits on top of it as well, which is just really cool little feature that he added onto it as well. Also, what he also created was a bunch of barriers too. So if you'll notice, let me put this one here in the middle of the board so you can see it. Put on opposite sides so you can see how he made this. You can see he's also made like wooden barriers, like wooden plank barriers. They're just kind of quickly made together. As you can see, it looks like metal I-beams are crisscrossing a support structure with boards of wood crisscrossing it. Those I-beams are, of course, from plastic signs that if you look on the inside of it, they actually have like an I shape to it, kind of like that. And the cool thing about those plastic signs, if you cut along the length of it, the width of it, you can get strips that look like I-beams. So like we said before, though, usually you can find those along the political seasons here in the United States around November, when politicians and stuff are putting up their signs. You can see those, and that's exactly the same kind of plastic card that we used to make that. And then of course the wooden boards that you see here, they're just made from individual pieces of balsa wood and cardboard that are cut into strengths and put on runners, and then painted and dry brushed and washed to make them look really cool. And that's how I went about making those barriers as well. I had to stop the video real quick because I forgot to grab the third kind of barrier that Iron Major has also made. With these wooden barriers filled with dirt and sand. It may look like it's like a pretty hastily built barrier system. So you can see it looks like it's wooden planks with dirt on the inside. If you've ever watched our videos about the tombs, you've kind of seen these kind of structures before, because we use those for the doors of the tombs when we would do battle reports in those areas. He's also made several of those as well, kind of like little hasty barricades that he had. And speaking of barricades, another barricades that he created, I'm going to reach across here, are HESCO barriers that he's made. Now, if anyone's familiar with HESCO barriers, they're a modern, quickly created obstacle and barrier that's created. What it is, you have a steel cage that is connected together with a cardboard box on the inside of a giant cardboard box. And what you do is you fill the entire structure with sand and rubble and dirt and rocks. And it creates these barriers that you can really quickly make real fast. Anybody who's ever played Call of Duty Modern Warfare, you've seen these before in those games where you have all these little barriers that's located all over the place. Anybody, of course, who's ever been deployed in the military has also seen them as well, because they set them up as hastily created fortifications. So as you can see what it is, it's just basically just a block of styrofoam real quick that he glued a strip of cardboard on the outside of it, and painted that, and then painted the grating and then glued on the outside of it, and then glued some sand and rocks and stuff on the top, and painted and dry brushed that to make these HESCO barriers. So these things are really, really cool. You could actually make quite a bit of them really, really quickly. In fact, we have 4 of them on this battlefield already, located right there as well. So that's an example of another barrier that Iron Major has made for our channel as well. So the last thing we're going to talk about real quick, not last thing, the next thing we're going to talk about real quick is the slime river that you guys have seen over the course of our channel's history. We're going to talk about that real quick. So let's get that on the roll. Alright, so next we're going to talk about this slime river. As you can see, it's about 4 feet in length. And the cool part is pretty much in like foot-long sections what it is. So I'm going to take this game plank. You guys have seen these game planks before. We talked about these. Another really cool invention made by Iron Major. And we'll talk about this section real fast. As you can see here, the slime river is modular, and that you can take it apart so that way it's easy to store. And it's just a really excellent piece of detailed work here. As you look here on the side, you can kind of see what makes up the construction of it. Pretty much what it is a piece of whiteboard. So we found an old piece of whiteboard, you can see here on the bottom of it, that Iron Major managed to find, and he cut that to the size and the dimensions that he wanted to create the base. And as you can see from the side profile, you can pretty much see how it was created. It's pretty much just strips of styrofoam located on the outside to make the wall of the gutter, and then some more blue styrofoam to fill up the center of it to create the banks of it, which he then of course just carved and cut into place using what he needed to do. And he also of course sanded it and covered it in glue and sand, so that way it's all cool looking for all the concrete and the dirt part. Now this water effect that you see here, what he did is he actually painted the base of it a bright lime green color, is what he did to make the base of it. And then what he did is he took liquid silicone and he actually poured it and smeared it along the entire length of the section to make it look like it's all slimy and oozy and gory to make the water effects. And then of course he let it dry. And then once you let it dry, with the silicone let it dry, he then dry brushed it again with the different shades of yellow and green to make it look like this oozy effect as well, to make it look like it's all nassified and made up of, you know, gunk and stuff. And that's pretty much what he did for all the 4 sections of it, for all the liquid parts that you see. And then finally, the last piece that you have here, which is the end cap piece here, he actually made to make it look like it was like a girder of some sort, where all the ooze and stuff comes out of. The top is just a piece of styrofoam, as you can see. Let me take this off real quick. It's just styrofoam box is what it is, and he has a piece of PVC pipe in the center to act as the ooze, and of course he did the same kind of liquid effect on the inside of it as well. Now the top of the grating, of course, is a type of a grating for a PVC pipe for drainage system, and the cap is just a piece of styrofoam with that glued on top. He also put some homemade flocking on the top of it to make it look like it was grown over a little bit with mosses and slimes and stuff. Let me go put this cap back on, right? There we go. And then for the other side here, to make the ladders to climb up it, what he did is he just took staples from a staple gun and just took them off bit by bit and just punched them directly into the side of the structure to make it look like it was a climbing thing, so that way you can climb up on it for your ladders and stuff. And that's how he went about making the slime river. It's a really cool piece of terrain. The color on it really pops, especially against the background. And actually, speak about this real quick. So you can see here, the battle mat we're actually using, this is a Frontline Games fat mat, battle mats they have. We got a 4x4 section on this one. It's made of the same neoprene, like mouse pad substance. It's got a really cool kind of urban vibe going on the bottom of it. We did that because our channel wanted to use a 4x4 battle mat for our videos, and that's what we just got real quick. It was on sale, so that was kind of nice. Now this bridge here that you see that crosses the structure as well, this part's kind of neat too because it's modulated, falls apart as well. So here's like the walkway. It's just made out of foam board. As you can see, we got some metal grating here on the inside of it for the superstructure of the frame that he just kind of glued together, and he painted, of course, to make it look like a catwalk. And then the 2 bases are put together and secured together with a 1/4-inch piping, PVC piping with elbow joints and pipes that he cut to length, and he painted up to connect them together. And then the steps, which is the most interesting part of this, it's just a solid piece of blue styrofoam that he cut to shape, the shape that he wanted to. And then of course he cut the stairs into it as well. And as you can see, he's got little strips of cardboard, really thin cardboard, that he put on the steps as well to reinforce it. And he painted it up and dry brushed it and sanded it and everything else like that with sand and dry brush and wash. So that way he could make it. And by wash, what we really mean is just watered down black paint. So that I went about making the bridge for that. So in case you're wondering how that's being made. So the last part we're going to talk about, of course, are these 2 fighting positions. We're going to talk about this one here in front of the West Superette. We're also going to talk about this sandbag fighting position here as well. And that'll do it for this video. Alright, so the last piece of terrain we're going to talk about is this sandbag obstacle that's located here, as well as the fighting position that's across the table. So let's go and start about the sandbag material first of all. So I'm just going to pick this terrain piece up so that way you guys can see it. So once again, pretty simple piece of terrain. Iron Major made this one. It's really cool looking though. Once again, it's mounted on old whiteboard, so that way it slides around and the base doesn't warp. But if you'll notice, he made individual sandbags, and what he basically did is he stacked it one on top of the other to make a sandbag fighting position. Took a very long time for him to actually make each individual sandbag. Now if you're wondering what the material he used was, he used milliput is what it is. It's a white looking Play-Doh like substance that he basically just made into shape. And then of course what he did is he cut them into lengths, take the sandbags, and he stacked them one on top of the other, and they carved in little indentions on the bags like you would see in normal sandbags, like right here. It's a little indention there. And he just stacked it together until basically they made the shape that he wanted, and they let it dry, and then of course he painted it and then dry brushed it and washed it, dry brushed it, added grit to the base to make it look like a sandy, and put of course Mod Podge on the outside of it to protect it. It's just, it took a long time for him to bake it. individual sandbags to actually put it all together again. It's just amazing the amount of patience he had to actually put that together again. So that sandbag structure is really, really cool, and it came out really awesome looking as well. So really happy about the work that Iron Major did for making that one. And the last piece, of course, is this fighting position, which is right in front of the West Superette. So I'm just gonna reach across the battlefield real quick and grab it real fast. So this one is really cool. It has a lot of character. One of the cool things about Iron Major's terrain pieces that he has and the design concepts he comes up with is that everything is battle damaged. And in my opinion, the battle damaged look that he creates on it just looks really fantastic. He claims that it makes making very easy because you don't have to be exact because it's going to look all jacked up when it's done. But at the same time, those look really cool. Like you can imagine guys hiding out in this hastily built piece of fighting position real quick just to fight back and hold out as long as he can. So as you can see here, it's just really detailed, just the amount of intricate work going into building this thing, which is amazing. As you can see in the bottom of core, once again, this old piece of whiteboard that he used for the base. And as for the dirt that he used for the earthworks, it's just, once again, just blue styrofoam that he cut to size. And he carved it up to make it look like it's covered in dirt, make it look like it was dirt. And then covered it glue with sand and stones and stuff, and he washed and dry brushed it. The edges of this, as you can see, is just individual pieces of cardboard and plastic card and balsa wood that he carved to make the wood planks. You can see here there's also like balsa wood strips that he cut into strips to make the framing and the decking of it. He used the I-beam cards that we used. They used to make the plastic card signs to make the I-beam metal structures on this. And then just balsa wood and cardboard. Balsa wood to create the wooden frame on the top. And then he took corrugated cardboard, sheets of it from old foil packs of tuna. That's the container that holds it in, and he cuts that to size, and he made it with metallic paints and weathered it, of course, to make it look rusty, using homemade washes and inks and stuff. Now the washes that he used to create this is just really watered down black paint, really watered down brown paint. I mean, just really simple stuff. Like I said, nothing here is pre-bought for the most part. The only thing that is pre-bought is the mat that it's all on, but all this stuff is made out of cardboard, sand, styrofoam, paint, and time. And glue. I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff that can be created with terrain if you really put your mind to it. So if you're looking for a really cheap way of making terrain and you're using just stuff that you have available to you, as you can see, just the amount of time that you put into it and the artistry involved, you can create some really fantastic pieces of terrain. And that's what Iron Major does. He just makes this stuff out of just ordinary items, and the ingenuity and the genius of it is just amazing to see what kind of results he gets from his terrain. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this one, you guys. A lot of cool stuff on this table. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the greatest news of our hobby. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, you guys. Stay classy.